All right, welcome to the Chaos Monthly meeting. It's good to see everybody. So the agenda is in the minutes today, and we can kind of talk through this. So last time we had Stephen Jacobs, who was on, and he's on again today. So hello, Stephen.
He's typing himself into the.
Thank you very much. So Stephen's at RIT. He's Rochester Institute of Technology, and he's part of a program that is thinking about OSPOs inside of universities and how we might go about thinking about academic software and what we need to think about from a health perspective, from an academic side of things. So this has been a kind of a maybe a low current in the CHAOSS project for a while, that things like scientific software naturally behaves or kind of functions differently than, say, corporate software in the open source space. So, so Stephen, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and
sure, be glad to.
I'll stop there. I think that's enough.
So yeah, I've got about 12 years into teaching open source related issues to undergraduate students. I'm originally a video game professor, and when OLPC came out, I wanted my students to make educational games for OLPC, so we started there. The students really enjoyed doing humanitarian work and doing open source work, and so we eventually, at their request, kept adding more courses, and eventually a minor in open source that's the first academic minor in the country. And you can find a lot of the links to what I'm talking about on the Open at RIT webpage. After about a 10-month lobbying process with the university, I got us to the point where we created what's, depending on who you ask, the second or third or fourth academic OSPO, and links to a lot of the programs that I'm talking about will be on that website. So out of that set of courses grew essentially a three-legged stool of a program, one that has the educational courses on the academic side, and one that has experiential education built into it on the informal education side, hackathons, events, speaker series, stuff like that. And then the third piece was RIT is what's called a cooperative education school. So that means that students have to have some number, one or greater, depending on the university, of full-time paid internships to be able to graduate, so that they leave school with some kind of professional experience. So we created an open source internship program focused on humanitarian organizations. So when I have money or a humanitarian organization has money, I connect them up with students to do work. And over the years, that has evolved from just hiring out a kid to do some more software engineering for somebody to actually being focused on community engagement and community management. And that those sets of co-ops kind of grew into something we call LibreCorps, which from April to April over the last 2 years, last year had a contract with UNICEF to mentor their humanitarian startups that have to agree to open source their products as part of the requirements for getting the funding from UNICEF. So we mentored a bunch of students, and we mentored a bunch of their innovation teams on how to try to prepare their pipelines and their projects to welcome the community and get them engaged in the open source way, et cetera, et cetera. And so now the efforts at the university level are to try to provide that same kind of support to faculty and staff. And so on the Open at RIT webpage, there's a link to our charter that talks about what we're going to do over the next couple of years. Some of that is getting metrics going, like pretty much all universities. We have no idea what anybody's doing because faculty are these independent, impossible to control or to discipline individuals. I say that speaking as one who is impossible to control or manage or discipline, as they found out over the last 25 years or so. So we have this kind of Wild West environment on the one hand. On the other hand, we have something like a more traditional software business in that, you know, the staff and faculty under the CIO's office and in the IT organization are, you know, they get told what to do and they have to listen. So when it comes to starting to do discovery on what's the university's impact on open source, open hardware, open data, et cetera, we have one group of people whom we can say, we just need you to let us know what you're doing so we can go ahead and be able to brag about what you're doing and support what you're doing and help you make it better. And on the faculty side, we have to kind of plead and cajole.
So Stephen, I think, did we meet at FOSDEM 2 years ago?
I have sadly never been to FOSDEM.
Okay, all right, wasn't you. Someone else.
Justin Flory, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
So it's more likely that Justin.
So you met Jacob Green.
Yeah. My first open source project work as a researcher was with Greg Hislop at Drexel in a HFOSS, a humanitarian open source software teaching endeavor. And I know he runs FOSS to Serve. I don't think he runs HFOSS. Do you affiliate with any of those two links?
So we, I know Greg and Heidi real well.
Mm-hmm.
Before Greg and Heidi took over Posse from Red Hat,
right.
We ran 3 instances on campus at RIT.
Yep. Yeah, no, we ran some at Drexel when I was there as well.
Yeah, we the weird thing between me and the rest of those folks is we like each other, we work together, but we don't work together that often because they're generally working with people who are primarily CS faculty and CS students.
Yep.
And they generally take an educational approach of throwing people into the lake to see if they can swim.
I think that's true.
They have this philosophy, and it's not wrong, right? That this philosophy of having people get productively lost in code. That's their phrase, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to take kids out of a small project environment, throw them into a massive code base, and have them figure out how to navigate in those environments and start engaging with the open source communities that have created them.
So
that's great.
Can I hop in here for a second?
Yes.
So we have a variety of things we do need to get through today. So, from talking to Stephen, and I think what's happening at RIT, and also OSPOs have sprung up at Johns Hopkins, and I think LERO. I don't know if you're familiar with the Irish Software Institute, LERO. It's a consortium of University in Limerick, University in Galway, University in Cork, and I think they're kind of getting this on their radar too. So it's
getting on the radar of a bunch of folks. The only people who've really officially, we have one, right, is Hopkins. And because Hopkins is an R1, this is my interpretation. They don't have really anything out there broadly, publicly that they're doing it. they've decided to do it internally, but it feels to me like they're taking kind of the approach of when it's perfect, we'll release, right? Which is one way open source works.
Sure.
Yeah, you don't publicize when you're trying to figure out what it is you're doing.
Right. So I don't care, and I know I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm publicizing it anyway. In part to kind of encourage those other academic folks to just go ahead and move forward, right? That open source is early release often. And that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I've done.
So I think the connection here with the CHAOSS project is, do we want to spend time in the project? Is this something worthy to take a look at? Is the metrics that would help reveal community health from an academic perspective? So what academic institutions would look at from a health perspective is probably quite different than what we might look at from a corporate perspective. So do we want to have this connection? I think it's a good one. I think there are organizations beyond even what Stephen has talked about. I know that the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative is very interested in scientific software. So they do a lot of funding of open source scientific software, which is kind of falls in this space, as most of the people that run those projects are academics. So does anybody have any comments on kind of this, looking at community health from this perspective? Or reaction?
I mean, my question might be, what are the metrics for the kind of work that you're talking about doing that would be useful? What kinds of metrics are you looking for?
I think that's the discussion, is to try to
that would be the discussion. We would figure that out. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
so a lot of, yeah. Go ahead, Armstrong.
Yeah, I just think technically it will also depend on the domain knowledge, but academically, it will only, what we have done so far is just to put it in a higher level of abstraction so that we don't tie it down to a particular use case. Because if I understand very well, when academics are looking into something like, let's say an industrial practice, they always try to generalize it. You see, so a metrics building up a particular observable fact, or if they want to build a hypothesis, they try to see, okay, now it's so good, it happens with, let's say, Facebook, it's happening with Google, so what? How can you generalize it to this given situation or things like that? So I think it's just the level of abstraction at this point.
So do you think, Armstrong? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Venya.
Oh,
sorry.
I just kind of wanted to jump off that point. From an anthropological perspective, when you're looking at brand communities versus open source communities, the metrics broadly differ because the stakeholders differ. That's also going to happen in an academic standpoint, but the academic standpoint is also sitting in a very special and possibly precarious spot where it has to collect information from multiple different circles, multiple different spheres, and then use that information in order to abstract and build on research, and then go and confirm that data. So not only do they have to further abstract information that they receive, they then have to go be able to validate and confirm it on a more specific level. So building a metrics suite, that's kind of how I'm viewing this currently. Building a metrics suite for academics is going to be very, very different from looking at an in situ community or a brand community in business. And we're going to have metrics that abstract data and also allow for a greater degree of validation.
Seems reasonable to me.
I do think, kind of to Sean's question too, and thank you, Armstrong and Venya, because I agree that we probably have a lot of these metrics developed that might be to the point that these are abstracted in such a way that they're probably available. I like the term that Venya used, which was metric suite, trying to think about what is currently available as developed in the CHAOSS project. I think this is what you were going at, Venya. Like, what do we have even that's in front of us at this abstract level that could be brought together in a meaningful way? And what might we be missing as well? Because obviously everything that of the 40 some odd metrics that we've developed, not everything is, we probably don't have full coverage that you would want to see, Stephen.
Yeah. You know, I mean, a lot of this is definitely early stage,
yeah,
explorable, and you know, some of it is, you know, the purpose of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so if as I hope, we can someday move to a world in which academics don't need to write a journal article about the open work that they've done to get it validated, right? That they can just say, look, here's the metrics, here's the community health, here's the number of people contributing to the OSPO, here's the number of people forking projects, right? That they can talk about the direct impact rather than this abstracted layer of, oh, I wrote about it and somebody else put it in their article, right?
Yep.
I hope that we can also prove that by doing solid community work, you therefore have a better project, therefore have greater impact, therefore you're more able to use your direct metrics to prove the impact of your work. Does that make sense?
It does.
One of the things I do in my software engineering lectures is I have students, I actually give them an Augur dashboard for projects that they contribute to, which frankly mostly is Augur right now. But I also use them use metrics on projects that I have them create, and I try to teach the whole course using GitHub as a platform. So that might be, that's not exactly the humanitarian piece, but it might be a path.
So kind of in the interest of time, it sounds like there's some great discussion here. Armstrong, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I just want to add that keep in mind that academics, it's a very difficult world, first of all, to convince. So what we have been doing so far, if I remember very well, I know the works of Tom Means. He has cited this project in so many avenues, and we don't see any problem there. Now, we should also remember that metrics is different from implication, like validation, control, and things like that. Metrics is just like putting your eyeglass or your binocular to look on something, what you capture. What you do afterward in that is quite different. I remember a paper we submitted to one journal, TIXI. The first round, reviewers were very mad with our definition of productivity. But lucky enough, on this reporter, we got a paper by Tom Zimmerman, who actually defined or gave his rationale for productivity, contrary to what the reviewers were even claiming. And we just sent that definition. Tom Zimmerman is a household name. And the reviewer said, oh, they accepted our definition, and we based some of the metrics from CHAOSS project. So well, just to say, convincing the academic world, it's very controversial. If we focus on building concrete metrics, is like what Prof just said, and see how we could apply it on real-time project, then at least we've given a lot of justification for our rationales. The rest is your individual argument, why and how you are applying it or implementing it.
So the one thing that listening to everyone speak that comes to mind is what we've done in the CHAOSS App Ecosystem Working Group for building out a set of metrics for the app ecosystem. So maybe we can use a similar approach here, but I don't want to use up too much time right now as well.
No, I think this is great.
I'm certainly interested in another conversation to understand more clearly, and if we wanted to set up a time to do that. I don't know if we want to open a working group just yet. But
I think regardless, it's safe to say there's interest.
I think so too.
Conversation.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for the feedback, and thanks for the description. This is great. So I'm looking at the minutes that got a lot bigger during this conversation. I'll figure out where we're at here. So I think From a minutes perspective, I think we're on the change request issue. So Sean, this was the point around the term reviews. Do you want to talk about this? And then
Sure.
It'd be great to leave here with kind of a conclusion to this.
We had discussed this 2 monthly meetings ago, and I wanted to wait for a monthly meeting to try to seek a consensus. In short, many people report seeing the name reviews in our metrics list and thinking it's a code review instead of a pull request or a merge request. And we looked at GitLab, GitHub, and Garrett. And we talked in depth with Ildiko about Garrett and how it works. And I think they use the term change request. And so what the evolution working group wants to do in short is disambiguate code reviews from these kinds of change requests. And so to change the name of what we're currently calling reviews to change request is our proposed name. And during the discussion 2 monthly meetings ago, there wasn't consensus. There was some thinking that reviews was plenty clear. The feedback we've gotten in our working group is that that's not the case. And so I just want to throw the question open. What does the community here think?
So the request is to move, I just put a link in the chat for everybody, just for a little bit of context as to how reviews is currently being used within metrics. And to Sean's point, the term review it wasn't locating people precisely where they wanted people to be located.
Right.
So I think Sean is proposing, or not just Sean, but from discussions, the proposal put forward by Sean is to change reviews to change request. Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So does anybody have any thoughts? Just find and replace reviews with change requests. And I think there's 3 of them. I get a thumbs up, double thumbs up from Amy.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, Sophia, did you give a thumbs up too? I thought so. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. All right, cool. Matt, thumbs up. All right, so it sounds like are there any points of concern that people would like to raise?
I just want to throw out there that when I think of a PR, I don't necessarily think that change is required. But I guess it is a change of the source repository that is being reviewed and will merge or not. So it just took me a second to get to the full context there. But it certainly sounds more straightforward than review. So it's a tricky situation.
It is. Okay, cool. So you're okay with it, Matt?
Yeah, I support it. I just wanted to say that out loud, in case others were feeling that same wait a minute moment.
Right on. All right. So it sounds like the general barking dog in the back. The general consensus is it's okay. I don't hear any real concerns. So I think maybe it's up to the working group then to simply make this change. I think it only shows up in evolution, but maybe we'll ask each of the working groups just to double check each of their metrics if the term review is used in such a way that it should be changed. So should we, Georg, is that a change that we can just make and merge, or should we do a comment period?
I think this is a more substantial change, renaming a metric that should go through the review process.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
No problem.
I wanted a soft consensus before we went through the work, but it sounds like there's no clear opposition to that rename, so we'll put it through
right on
the review period. All right, thanks everyone.
Yep. We'll have to involve Kevin to make the change on the website as well.
Well, so what we'll do
the review process.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll create pull requests to change the metrics where the term review is used in place of change request. and open those metrics up for review. There will be a couple of pull requests outside the evolution working group where the term reviews has been used. But the evolution working group will take care of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. So it looks like Hacktoberfest made the list. I don't know who put that in there.
Augur is doing it. We've got some Hacktoberfest issues and we're part of it.
I think this is about the spam that has been showing up.
So Venu unfortunately just left. He had put this on just as a point
I see.
to get everyone aware that the Hacktoberfest rules have changed. And so as we are participating in this as Augur, Grimoire Lab, and maybe even with some of our working groups, there are additional steps that we as maintainers have to do to get everyone who wants to participate and get the benefits of Hacktoberfest to accommodate that. So we need to make sure that we label our repositories and issues pull requests correctly with these new roles.
So where is it just label like a tag, or is it label in the heading? Where does this label show up?
I believe the pull requests need to be labeled with the tag, the Hacktoberfest accepted.
It's yep, and there's Hacktoberfest 2020 is how you label the issues, and I'm going to put a link to the Augur issue list in because we have a number right there at the top that have been opened that are labeled Hacktoberfest 2020, and so you label issues that way. And then there's another syntax as Georg is pointing out for a pull request, which is, what is it again, Georg?
Hacktoberfest accepted for pull requests to count.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. Any other comments on that? All right, moving right along. The next one, governing board changes. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Armstrong and Amy, who are on the call. So Armstrong and Amy are the new board members. So, yay.
Yay.
Welcome. Welcome. And then Nicole Huseman is the new co-director of the board with Georg. So that's also yay. Nicole can't be here today, but she'll normally be in this call. So that's totally awesome. So congratulations to all of you. Armstrong, Amy, do you want to say anything? Like, you don't have to. Don't worry.
This is your acceptance speech. Make it count.
Yes, that's right. Inspire us.
I've been here since the beginning. I went to the first meetings in Los Angeles. Yeah, and I've just always been a fan of what we've been doing. And I remember some of those first conversations when they said diversity, and like half the people were talking about diversity of the project and the other half of the people were talking about diversity and inclusion. So we've come a really long way on that and what our metrics stand for. So I'm excited to take a new role in the community.
Yeah, there was a lot of talking around diversity and inclusion at the beginning. It's corporate diversity. We want a lot of corporations involved. That's what we mean. No.
I mean, it is important if it's only
of course
behind a project, but it was just so interesting how different people just like jump to different words, and we've come a long way. So we've done a good job in the last 3 years.
Hey, and Nicole just joined too. Unless I didn't see you join.
No,
it was like, so Nicole, we are welcoming you as the new co-director of the board. So we're all very happy for you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Is she here? I think it's Iziko.
I see her name. Maybe her audio is not
Iziko
working.
who is congratulating us. Anyway, before she speaks, I just want to see this opportunity
No, we
to
can't hear you.
Hello.
Go ahead, Armstrong. Yeah, go ahead, Armstrong.
Okay, I just want to seize this opportunity to thank everyone. This community has really been a great, both in my academic career and my professional life. Because I remember when I was doing my PhD exam, one of my extended reviewer was so like, he has never heard about community health. He's more on the AI domain. So he was like, so mad, how can you measure all these things like health? What are you talking about? I said, okay, these matrices are not mine. I just pointed CHAOSS project. He looked at it and said, okay, that sounds interesting. And that was when he started, he heard about CHAOSS and now started pointing his students like, okay, you guys could cite some of the metrics, they are good, I've seen it. And he really gave good comment at the end of it. And most of works we have been doing here, I really consume them. And I think I'm one of the first consumer of the CHAOSS project is in terms of ecosystem health. Because at the end of the day, I'm measuring the health of ecosystems such as OpenStack, Kubernetes, Google, and many others. So I'm coming up also with some platforms using machine learning and artificial intelligence to do my work. So CHAOSS is really like a very strong arm for on my side. Thanks.
Thanks, Armstrong. If you didn't see Amy's chat, yeah. Something about a chicken invasion. So anyway, which is pretty, I think it's literally chickens. All right, well, welcome everybody. This is great. The next item is all things open. And there's a sign-up sheet if you're interested to help be at the booth and help talk about the CHAOSS project. So just click that little link there and you can add yourself. Not really sure what it entails other than being available and talking. Did you get the chickens, Amy?
Where is it being hosted?
It's online.
Okay,
like
that makes sense.
Yeah, see that? It's like right here. See that?
Yeah.
I just highlighted it. There's like a teeny tiny little link right there. I don't know why it got so small. But right now, Elizabeth and I are signed up for the booth. So if you have an interest, that'd be great. All right, so moving along. Updates from the working groups, particularly the metrics working groups. Does anybody want to chime in on that? Like, we can go out of order, I guess, is what I'm saying. So
I can talk about, well, I'll let other people talk about D&I if you want, but I'll talk a little bit about the badging program if that's necessary here. Okay, we are starting a track. This is actually a suggestion from Ruth, I think. We are starting a track for outreach for the D&I badging program. So I'm going to be sending out some emails to some regulars in the badging program, but also I'll drop my email here for if you want to get involved with reaching out. And we've got a template built. We've got all kinds of other help we can provide for getting started with the outreach on D&I badging. But it's just basically sending out emails to people who are running or boards, committees that are running an event and asking if they'd like to apply. That's it.
thank you, Matt. I also know in the D&I work group that we're getting close on a couple of metrics, so work is proceeding there well. Risk, Sean?
I wasn't at the last risk meeting, but you sent out a nice summary email.
Which I've already forgotten about.
Yeah. It sounded like there was some good discussion, but I wasn't there at the last one.
Okay,
so
look at Matt G's email.
Yeah. Well, it's probably also in the minutes.
I think a lot of the work right now in like risk and value and evolution and common for that matter too, is about advancing metrics again. So I think that's kind of good. A lot of the, when I was going through that spreadsheet there at the top, I think I was counting maybe upwards of about 10 to a dozen different metrics that are being advanced at the different working groups. So that's what's happening kind of in risk.
Yeah, looks like there weren't notes taken at the last risk meeting.
Well, that was a good setup for me to say ditto for value. What Matt just explained. Yeah, we're iterating on metrics in progress, popularity being the most popular one right now, depending on your definition of popularity, which we are currently going through. If that sounds interesting, join us. And then the work for the SCMS breaking into a project, which it looks like I missed an amazing conversation there. So I'm gonna plan to watch the video. Yeah,
Oh, there were notes.
that kind of stuff.
I think the other thing with value, Matt, is folks from UNICEF joined the last value call.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so part of what I think we have to think about with value is like how, kind of like when Stephen was on, like how we make that connection meaningful for the value working group and for UNICEF, right? So how can we find digital public goods? Yes, I can never remember that. But how we can find a point of connection that is beneficial to both.
Yeah, like when is it a working meeting working through metrics versus more of an interview or context building meeting with a guest?
I think it was more context building, at least this last time. So they have what are called digital public goods, and they're looking at ways to identify what a digital public good is. And so are there metrics that can help in that that observation process? Are there things that they can look at that would help help them in their decision-making process to determine what a digital public good is? Like right now, they're trying to catalog, from what I understand, they're trying to catalog digital public goods, whatever those might be. And so based on the definition of what they have for digital public goods, are there kind of systematic ways that they can improve the identification of those goods as having a societal impact, of having a local impact, whatever it might be? Are there things that can help them make a determination that, yes, this is a digital public good?
Good deal. Okay, a lot more to explore there. And yeah, that's value.
So still in the context building, to your point.
That sounds like a very fun, very long, dicey conversation. I look forward to hearing the conclusion of.
It was really interesting. It was really a lot of fun. So
it seems like you have an interesting conversation every time that meeting occurs. It's just a completely out of nowhere. Yeah, this consideration has happened. I love it.
Great. Evolution or app ecosystem, Georg, or
on the app ecosystem, we wrapped up the event organizer role. So the approach we are taking in this working group is really finding metrics that will be interesting to different roles in a large ecosystem of projects. And we focus on the event organizer first. So we finished that up, and we finished a blog post this week, and we will publish that soon. I'm happy to share that with you up front. Let me pull that up real quick. I'll add it to the note.
What's you're defining roles of people that are within the app ecosystem, is that right? And then what's the next step after that? So
we went through the goal question metric approach, and we came up with 17 goals.
Okay.
And we said these are too many, and not everyone is concerned with every goal. And so we identified personas, or different people or groups that are specific, like the promotion communications team, event organizers, mentors. And we assigned the goals to these personas.
I
gotcha.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
That's a substantial amount of work with 17 personas.
Yeah,
good luck.
I'll put link
I
in the
think
chat.
Ruth has a question on the chat. Can someone take a
Oh.
look on that, please?
Thank you. Yep. So the question is there a metric that defines how open source projects or communities use inclusive language? And so at the moment, did you, somebody else put something in there? Matt put something. Matt, do you want to comment what you put in there? In the chat? Matt is muted. So if I share my screen real quickly. In the D&I working group, there are communication inclusivity, but I don't think these metrics have been advanced. So listening and speaking may be in line with what you're talking about, Ruth. And certainly happy to.
I think based on her question, the matrices are there from what Matt just put on, because they are already defined and having some explanations there.
But we have not defined these yet. They were identified. If they're yellow, these are just like in progress for us.
Oh, okay.
So we haven't taken the time to actually.
I was looking at the GitHub. No, okay, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I can give the evolution report in like 2 seconds if you want it.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that? So Ruth, yes, I think we're doing that.
We closed a couple pull requests, one reorganizing, getting rid of some old stuff, another updating Grimoire Lab links. And we created some dependency metrics in the spreadsheet. We recognize that dependencies are an issue that span the project. More than one working group may work on those. And we added some metrics about branch lifecycle. There's different ways that you can look at how different projects use branches. Some have feature branches, some have developer branches. And so that was a category added. That's it.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Anything else from a few minutes here. Anything else from the working groups? Thank you, everybody. And there's still a conversation going on in the chat, but I'm going to kind of hit these last few things. So it looks like, just FYI, we'll say this a lot, starting June 1st, we're going to move to Linux Foundation hosted Zoom. So this is university hosted Zoom.
Starting when?
November 1st.
Okay. I thought you said June 1st, but maybe it was me.
I also heard June.
Did I say June? Maybe I said June for all I know. Anyway,
we can go back and check. Somebody go back and check the
attention.
tape. We're going to check the tape.
Brace yourself. This is coming soon in 9 months. So,
or it happened already. What is that?
So it looks like it's working. We're just going to give some lead time there. The community reports, we're having some issues around images. So one of the things we ask for is we request images for a community report to be built.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, the combination of different image types and different browser types, only one of the images was coming across. Like a certain browser and a certain image, only one was coming across. So it looks like they're actually getting that fixed right now. So we should be good there. And then just this last, so I know we've talked a lot about dependencies, but this link, if you take a look at this, this is a project called Mariner, and it's from Dwayne O'Brien at Indeed. And what Mariner is a way to build, so you have a dependency list that's built in JSON. And then what the tool will do is basically take this list of dependencies that you're interested in and look at all of the repositories of those dependencies to see if there's any issues that are marked as, good first issue, easy issue to solve. And it's a way to try to encourage developers to identify projects that they're dependent on, right? Kind of in that ecosystem, and help resolve kind of good first issues that might be in that dependency tree. So what I'd like to do around this dependency thing is kind of start building a matrix of I'm always distracted by cats. Build a matrix of any animal. I have the gallery view, so I see everybody. So, so build kind of a matrix of what are our current set of dependency tools out there that are even available in the world, and what kind of, that can be a horizontal set of rows, and then across the top, what issues do these tools help with? Because I think it might be a good idea to start getting a kind of a lay of the land on what dependency tools are out there.
Yeah.
And what dependency related questions they can answer, because I'm guessing they all can't answer everything.
So the Mariner project looks really interesting. We've been in the risk working group discussing tags, which is essentially what they're looking at.
Yeah, they have like six tags that they 6 or 8 tags that they look at in their related projects.
Okay, so we could easily, and obviously they're prescribing the use of those tags as ways of indicating dependency.
Yep.
So it requires some degree of compliance on the part of the project.
Correct. Right. Like good first issue, if that's the name. If you name it something else, then it wouldn't grab.
I think where the risk working group could make a contribution to this project, and maybe offline you can share the way to do that, is we've done some analysis of the actual tags used by tens of thousands of repos.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I think it would be worth looking at their 6 and ours, and finding the relevant synonyms.
Could you, real quickly, I know we're 1 minute over.
Yep.
Do you have the link to that?
It'd just be the risk working group notes.
The data that you have. Okay.
Yeah. I will.
I could share that as an issue with Dwayne. Okay. Thank you. Everybody, we're at the end of time. It's good to see everybody. Till next time.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Bye, gang. Good to see you.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Bye all.
Bye.
It was good actually attending a meeting.